You know that distinct aroma of a mid-level corporate hub? It's a blend of stale breakroom coffee, the ozone from overworked printers, and the sharp metallic taste of unspoken frustration. That was my environment for 8 long years. I was the structural pillar in a fragile empire built by a man named Greg, a director of operations whose only real talent was turning oxygen into blame. I'm Sarah. I'm the woman you walk past without noticing. I'm the one correcting the data logs at 7 p.m., while the sales team is out celebrating margins I saved. My husband Tom works here too. A level below Greg, a level above me, and floating somewhere in the orbit of willful blindness. It began like any other Tuesday, which means it began with a manufactured emergency. We had a shipment of pharmaceutical-grade components stuck in customs in Hamburg. I had flagged this potential issue 3 weeks prior. I had sent emails. I had highlighted the risk in red on the weekly dashboard. I had practically hired a skywriter to spell out, "Greg, the Germans are going to hold the cargo." He ignored it. He was too busy strategizing and planning his executive getaway, which everyone knew was just him drinking expensive wine in a hot tub in Aspen on the company dime. So when the client called screaming at 9 a.m., Greg didn't panic. Greg looked for a scapegoat. The staff meeting was at 10 o'clock. The conference room was one of those glass aquariums where privacy goes to die. The climate control was malfunctioning again, so everyone was sweating through their budget-friendly suits. Greg stood at the head of the table, his face that dangerous shade of crimson he gets when he feels threatened. "We dropped the ball, people," Greg said, his eyes scanning the room looking for a target. "Accountability is the bedrock of this organization." I was typing minutes trying to keep my head down, praying to a higher power I stopped believing in during the merger of 2018. "Sarah," he barked. "My stomach did that thing where it tries to exit through your feet." "Yes, Greg. Why didn't you clear the regulatory paperwork for the Hamburg shipment?" The room went so quiet you could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the break room. "I did, Greg," I said, my voice steady but thin. "I sent the forms to your inbox for approval 3 weeks ago. I followed up on the 12th, the 14th, and yesterday. You said, and I quote, 'Stop pestering me about the widgets, Sarah. I'm handling big picture strategy.' I shouldn't have said the quote. I knew it the second it left my lips. You don't quote an egoist to his face in front of an audience." Greg didn't yell immediately. He did something worse. He smiled, a tight predatory grimace that showed too many teeth. "So it's my fault?" he asked, his voice dropping dangerously low. "You're blaming leadership for your inability to manage upwards." "I'm not blaming anyone," I said, my hands trembling under the table. "I'm stating the process workflow." "You're insubordinate," he said louder now. "You've been negative, toxic, and frankly a drain on this team for months. Tom has told me how stressed you are at home. Maybe you're just not cut out for this level of play, sweetheart." He looked at Tom, my husband, the man I share a mortgage and a life with. Tom looked at his shoes. He inspected the scuff on his dress shoes like it was an ancient artifact. He said nothing, not a word. "I'm terminating you," Greg said. It wasn't a discussion. He pulled a pre-printed envelope from his binder. He had this ready. He was waiting for a victim. Effective immediately. "Pack your things. You can't be serious." I stood up. The blood rushed to my head. "I built this department's tracking protocol. I trained half this room to get out." Greg slammed his hand on the table. The water pitcher jumped. "And don't bother going to HR. I've already briefed them on your volatility." I looked at Tom again. "Tom," I pleaded. Tom finally looked up, his face pale, terrified. "Sarah, just don't make a scene. We can talk at home." "Talk at home," Greg laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. "She doesn't need to talk, Tom. She needs to grow up." He walked over to the door, opened it, and slammed it shut with enough force to rattle the glass walls. Then he turned back to me, veins bulging in his neck, and screamed the words that would eventually cost him his career. "Then go cry to your daddy, Sarah. Get out of my sight. Go cry to your daddy. I'm 38 years old. My father has been gone for 5 years." Greg knew that. He sent a cheap arrangement to the service and billed it to the company expense account as client development. The silence in that room was heavy. It had mass. It pressed against my eardrums. 20 coworkers, people I've shared lunches and venting sessions with, stared at the laminate table. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I felt something snap. Not a breakdown, a breakaway. My dignity didn't shatter. It just evaporated, leaving a cold, hard vacuum where my loyalty used to be. I picked up my laptop bag. I didn't say a word. I walked out of the fishbowl, past the reception desk where the 22-year-old intern looked like she was about to faint from secondhand stress, and into the hallway. I was numb. You know how in movies people cry and throw things? Real devastation is quiet. It's a high-pitched ringing in your ears and the sudden realization that you are completely, utterly alone. Here's the thing about stories like this. About people like me who get chewed up and spit out by the corporate machine. We usually just fade away. We update our resumes and move on. By the way, if you're reading this and feeling that rage bubble up, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It helps get the story out there. And trust me, you're going to want to see where this disaster lands. Karma is a slow burn, but I brought fuel. I didn't fade away. Because as I walked down that hallway, blinded by tears I refused to shed, I wasn't as alone as I thought. The hallway stretched out like a mile of gray-carpeted purgatory. My heels clicked against the floor. Click, click, click. A countdown until I could get to my car and scream until my throat was raw. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my favorite travel mug. A stainless steel thing that said, "Organized chaos," hit the floor and didn't dent. It just bounced and rolled away, mocking me with its durability. I bent down to grab it, but a hand got there first. Weather-beaten skin, knuckles swollen with hard work, nails trimmed short and clean. It was Mrs. Rodriguez. She was the evening facilities manager. I'd seen her every day for 8 years. She was a ghost in a gray uniform, pushing a cart full of supplies and trash bags. Most people in the office treated her like a robotic vacuum with a pulse, an obstacle to step around while talking on their headsets. I was one of the few who actually knew her name. Not because I'm a saint, but because I was always the last one leaving the office, and she was the only other human being in the building. At 7:30 p.m. we had a ritual. She'd empty my bin. I'd ask about her grandchildren. She'd offer me a cinnamon candy from her pocket. "Mrs. Rodriguez," I choked out, wiping a traitorous tear from my cheek. "I'm sorry, I'm just leaving. She held the mug out to me, but she didn't let go when I reached for it. Her grip was surprisingly firm. She looked around the empty hallway, her dark eyes sharp, intelligent, and devoid of the deference she usually wore like a uniform. "He yelled loud," she said. Her accent was distinct, but her voice was low and steady. The whole floor heard. "Cry to your daddy. That is what he said." I nodded, feeling the humiliation wash over me again. Fresh and hot. "Yeah, that's what he said. Greg is having a bad day. Greg is a fool," she said. It was the first time I'd ever heard her speak ill of anyone. She pulled me slightly closer into the alcove by the freight elevator, away from the cameras. "You go home now, Sarah," she said. "You go home and you do not cry. You listen to me." "I have to go, Mrs. Rodriguez. I don't work here anymore." "I know," she whispered. "That is good. You are free of the poison. But you need to listen. My son. You know my son?" I shook my head, confused. "I didn't know you had a son nearby. I thought they were all in Florida." She smiled, a small secretive curling of her lips. "I have one here. David. He works for the, how you say, the big company. The one that owns this 1-foot corporate." I asked. "Parent company?" "Yes. David Rodriguez. He is the regional vice president. Oversees this branch. He oversees Greg. He oversees your husband." My brain stopped. It literally stalled out. I tried to process this information. The woman who cleaned the messes Greg made after Taco Tuesdays was the mother of the regional VP. It sounded like a soap opera plot twist or a hallucination brought on by stress. "David," I repeated. "Wait, I've heard Greg complain about a David from HQ." He calls him the audit assassin. Is my boy, she beamed with pride. He's very good with numbers. He buys me a house. He tells me I don't have to work but I like to work. I like to see things. People talk in front of the cleaner. They think I am furniture. I hear everything. I hear Greg steal the credit for your work. I hear him lie about the numbers. I hear him tell your husband to keep the wife in line. I gasped. He said that last week by the coffee machine. She patted my hand. My David has been watching. He suspects things are rotten. But he needs the key. She reached into her uniform pocket and pulled out a burner phone, or at least a very old flip phone. She pressed a button and showed me a text message she had just sent. It read, "Greg fired Sarah. He blamed the German shipment. He screamed about fathers. It is time to stay home tomorrow, Sarah." Mrs. Rodriguez said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Do not answer the office. Do not answer HR. Let the men run their mouths first. Let them dig the hole. My David will call you. Why are you helping me?" I asked, my voice trembling. She looked at me, her eyes hard and knowing. "Because 5 years ago when my husband passed, you were the only one who sent a card. You put $50 in it. Greg docked your pay for being late to the service. She remembered. I had forgotten, but she remembered. Go. She pushed me gently toward the elevator. He will be begging. By Friday, he will be begging. I walked to my car in a daze. The sun was shining, which felt insulting. I sat in my sedan, gripping the steering wheel, my knuckles white. I had been fired. My career was in ruins. My husband was a coward. But as I looked up at the 4th-floor window of the office building, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt like a loaded weapon. Mrs. Rodriguez wasn't just a cleaner. She was a sleeper agent, and she had just activated me. The next morning, the silence in my apartment was louder than a jet engine. Usually, I'd be up at 6 a.m. mainlining coffee, checking emails, and ironing Tom's shirts because he doesn't get the collars right. Today I sat at the kitchen table in my pajamas, watching the dust motes dance in the sunlight. Tom was frantic. He was rushing around, shoving toast into his mouth, looking at me like I was an unexploded bomb he didn't know how to defuse. Are you okay?" he asked. Ty half nodded. "I'm fine, Tom. Look, babe," he started, using that condescending, I'm the rational male voice I had grown to despise. "I know Greg was harsh yesterday, but you have to understand the pressure he's under. The German shipment is a disaster. I warned him about the German shipment, Tom. I know, but you challenged him in public. That's insubordination." He had to save face. He paused, checking his watch. "I talked to HR. They're preparing a severance package. It's generous. 2 weeks' pay if you sign the NDA. 2 weeks, I laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. 8 years, Tom. I built the tracking system. And he offers 2 weeks and a gag order. It's standard. Sarah, don't be difficult. Just stay here. Cool off. Don't post anything on social media. Please, for my sake. I still have to work there. For your sake, I repeated. Right. Go to work, Tom. Don't be late. Greg might need someone to hold his ego while he works. He slammed the door when he left. I watched him get into his leased sedan, a car we couldn't really afford, but Greg insisted his management team needed to project success. I made a pot of coffee and sat there. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. HR probably. Greg calling to scream some more. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, buzz. Unknown number. I ignored it. Then my laptop chimed. A calendar invite sent to my personal email. Subject. Consultation/Rodriguez time. Now. Link. Secure video channel. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Mrs. Rodriguez wasn't kidding. I clicked the link. The screen flickered and a man appeared. He was sitting in an office that looked like it belonged on a futuristic starship. Minimalist glass chrome. No clutter. No motivational posters, just efficiency. He looked like a predator in a tailored suit, sharp features, slicked back hair, and eyes that were the exact same shade of observant onyx as Mrs. Rodriguez. Mrs. Sarah Miller. His voice was smooth, baritone, calm. Yes, you must be David. I am. Thank you for joining me. I apologize for the intrusion on your personal device, but my mother speaks highly of you and she has, let's call it, excellent situational awareness. She told me to stay home, I said. She gave you good advice. If you had gone in today or spoken to HR, they would have locked you into a narrative. Disgruntled employee, performance issues, emotional breakdown. That's the paperwork filed last night at 11:30 p.m. He filed it already? Oh yes. Claims you were hysterical, threw objects, and refused corrective feedback regarding the Hamburg logistics. David looked down at a tablet on his desk. He also claims he has been coaching you for 6 months on your attitude problems. That's a lie, I said, the anger flaring up hot and bright. I have my reviews. They're all exceeds expectations until Greg realized I was correcting his mistakes. I assumed as much, David said. He leaned forward. Sarah, I'm going to be blunt. I've been looking into the branch for 6 months. The numbers don't add up. The overtime is astronomical, yet shipments are late. Client retention is dropping. But Greg is slippery. He covers his tracks. He blames the market, the vendors, and apparently you. He uses people. I said he uses us until we break, then he replaces us. I need you to help me break him. David said it wasn't a request. My mother says you keep records. She says you're the type of woman who writes things down. I hesitated. This man was technically the enemy. He represented the corporation that just fired me. But looking at his face, cold, precise, but oddly respectful, I realized he wasn't looking for a scapegoat. He was looking for a weapon. I have a folder, I whispered. I call it my SOE folder. Cover your assets. David smiled. It was the first time his expression softened. I love a good acronym. What's in the folder, Sarah? Everything, I said. 3 years of emails, drafts of reports before Greg edited them, timestamp chat logs where he approved the overtime he now claims is unauthorized, recordings of meetings he thought were off the record because I was taking minutes, and the Hamburg shipment. I have the email from 3 weeks ago where I explicitly told him the customs code was wrong. His reply was, "Don't bore me with details. Just ship it." David leaned back, steepling his fingers. Sarah, if you send me that folder, I can promise you 2 things. 1, Greg will never scream at anyone again. And 2, we need to discuss your future. Because I don't like losing competent people to incompetent managers. What about Tom? I asked. My husband. David's face went blank. We'll get to Tom, but right now you need to decide. Do you want to be the victim who got fired? Or do you want to be the auditor? I looked at the join meeting button. I thought about Greg's spit flying in my face. I thought of Tom inspecting his shoes. Where do I send the files? You know those hoarding shows where they open a door and a landslide of old newspapers falls out? My CYA folder was the digital equivalent of that. But instead of junk, it was the fossilized remains of Greg's integrity. I sat there for 4 hours uploading files to the secure server David provided. It felt like an exorcism. File number 0001. The team building dinner. Receipts showing Greg spent $4,000 on a steak dinner for prospective clients. The clients were his college buddies. I had the original itemized receipt because he was too lazy to scan it himself and threw it on my desk. He'd listed it as Strategic Partnership Development. He had added a sticky note. Scan. Sarah, make sure this gets coded to marketing, not entertainment. Audit is coming. File number 045. The overtime scandal. Greg loved to scream about budget discipline. Yet, here was a chain of emails where he forced the warehouse team to work double shifts to cover up his scheduling errors. Then manually went into the payroll system using my login, which he demanded I share for emergencies, to alter the hours so they didn't trigger overtime pay. I had screenshots of the system logs showing the IP address of the changes came from his tablet, Not my desktop. File number 102. The Hamburg disaster. This was the crown jewel. From Sarah to Greg. Date: October 14th, 9:03 a.m. Subject: Urgent Hamburg Customs Code Error. Greg, the HS code you selected for the components is for medical implants. Requires a Class 3 permit we don't have. It needs to be coded as raw industrial material. If we ship as is, it will be seized. From Greg to Sarah. Date: October 14th, 9:15 a.m. Subject: Urgent. Sarah, stop trying to play lawyer. I've been doing this for 20 years. The code stands. Stop pestering me about the widgets and focus on your KPIs. I highlighted pestering me about the widgets in neon yellow. David was reading them in real time. I could tell because every few minutes a little chat bubble would pop up on our encrypted channel. David. He charged a boat rental to office supplies? Me. He called it ergonomic aquatic meeting space. David, creative. It was shameful in a way. I felt dirty. Why had I sat on this? Why had I let him get away with it for so long? It was like a peasant in a medieval village watching the Lord burn the crops and thinking, well, at least he didn't burn my hut today. But then I remembered the go cry to your daddy line. The shame evaporated, replaced by the cold, metallic taste of justice. Sarah, David's voice came through the speaker again. He had turned the video back on. He looked grim but also impressed. This isn't just misconduct. This is fraud. This is labor violations. This is extensive. Is it enough? I asked, sipping my third cup of coffee. My hands had finally stopped shaking. Enough. David let out a short, sharp laugh. Sarah, this is a nuclear warhead. With this, I don't just fire him. I can contest his unemployment. I can claw back his bonuses. I can probably get him blacklisted from every logistics firm in the hemisphere. He paused, looking at a specific document. It was a performance review from 2 years ago where Tom, my husband, signed off on Greg's evaluation of me. Greg had written, Sarah struggles with authority and emotional regulation. Tom had countersigned it. David looked up at the camera. Did you know Tom signed this? I squinted at the screen. No. Tom told me he fought for me in that review. He said Greg wanted to put me on a peak performance improvement plan. But he talked him down. He didn't fight, David said softly. He agreed. See here, Tom added a note. Agreed. Sarah can be difficult to manage during high stress periods. We'll monitor. The air left the room. It wasn't just Greg. Greg was the predator, sure. But Tom was the scavenger. He was the little bird picking scraps from the crocodile's teeth. He threw me under the bus to keep his own seat warm. I see, I said. My voice sounded dead. I need you to do something difficult, Sarah, David said. I need you to act normal tonight. When Tom comes home, he's going to try to manage you. He's going to try to get you to sign that severance. I need you to stall. Don't sign anything. Just listen. I need to know how deep his complicity goes before I pull the trigger. You want me to spy on my husband? I want you to see who you're actually married to. I looked at the empty apartment. The wedding photos on the mantel seemed to be mocking me. Okay, I said. I'll play the good little wife one last time. Tom came home at 6:45 p.m. He brought pizza, the Domino's I'm sorry you got fired but please don't be mad special. He walked in with that cautious deer in headlights look, scanning the room to see if I had packed a bag or burned the curtains. When he saw me sitting on the couch watching a baking show, my comfort TV, he visibly relaxed. Hey hon, he said, putting the greasy box on the table. You okay? You didn't answer my texts. I was decompressing, I said, not looking away from the TV. He sat down next to me, too close. He smelled like office sanitizer and fear. Look, I talked to Greg today. When he calmed down. Oh, did he apologize? Tom laughed nervously. Well, you know Greg, he doesn't really apologize, but he admitted he might have been elevated. He's willing to fast-track the severance. Even said he wouldn't contest it if you apply for unemployment. As long as you sign the release. How generous, I said. And what did you say, Tom? I told him that was fair. I mean, Sarah, let's be real. You haven't been happy there for a long time. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You can take some time. Maybe look into that online shop you always wanted to start. My blood ran cold. The online shop. The patronizing pat on the head. Go make your little crafts, honey, while the men do the business. And the go cry to your daddy comment? I asked, turning to face him. Did you tell him that was out of line? Tom sighed, rubbing his temples. Babe, come on. He was stressed. You know, he didn't mean it literally. He forgot about your dad. It was just a figure of speech. You're perseverating. Perseverating. A corporate buzzword he learned at a seminar last month. If someone spoke to me like that, I said quietly, and I was your wife. Wouldn't you want to punch him? Violence doesn't solve anything, Sarah, he said, sounding like a scolding parent. I have to be professional. I have a mortgage to pay. We have a mortgage. If I blow up at Greg, we both lose our incomes. Is that what you want? To be homeless because of your pride? There it was. The pivot. My dignity was a threat to his financial security. I saw the performance review. I lied. Well, a half lie. I saw it today, but I framed it like I knew all along. The one from 2022 where you agreed I was difficult to manage. Tom froze. A slice of pepperoni pizza halted halfway to his mouth. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't gaslight me, Tom. I'm unemployed, not lobotomized. You threw me to the wolves to keep Greg happy. You've been doing it for years. He dropped the pizza. It landed face down on the rug. A perfect metaphor for our marriage. You don't understand how it works, he snapped, his nice guy mask slipping. Greg is a psychopath. If I don't agree with him, I'm next. I did what I had to do to protect us. I kept the peace. You're the one who can't just keep your mouth shut and do the work. You always have to be right. I was right about the Hamburg shipment, I said. Who cares about the damn shipment? He yelled. It's about hierarchy, Sarah. He's the director. You're just support staff. You don't get to correct him. The silence that followed was heavy. He realized what he said. He called me just support staff. Not his wife, not his partner. A subordinate. I think you should sleep in the guest room, I said. Oh, come on, Sarah. Guest room or I leave. And if I leave, I take the car. He huffed, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and stomped off to the guest room like a petulant teenager. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from David. David, the trap is set. Stay home tomorrow. I'm initiating a level 1 audit. Watch the show. I looked at the closed guest room door. I realized I wasn't sad anymore. My dignity hadn't left. It had just been hiding, waiting for ammunition, and I finally had a full magazine. Wednesday was beautiful. I slept in until 8 a.m. I drank tea. I watered my plants. Meanwhile, 5 miles away, the office was burning to the ground. I got the play-by-play from Jen, the receptionist. She didn't know I was working with David. She just thought she was gossiping with her fired friend. Jen texted, for guys in suits just walked in. They look like the FBI but better dressed. They took Greg's laptop. Me? No, wait. What's Greg doing? Jen, he's screaming. He's telling them they don't have authorization. One of the suits just handed him a paper and Greg turned purple. He is locked in his office now. David had launched a surprise compliance audit. In the corporate world, this is the equivalent of a SWAT raid. I logged into the secure channel David provided. He had shared a read-only view of the internal chat logs. He wanted me to see it. He wanted me to see the panic. Internal chat operations leadership. Greg. Who authorized these auditors? I need them removed. They are disrupting the workflow. Tom, I don't know. Greg said they're from regional. They're asking for the Hamburg files. Greg. Tom, don't give them anything. Tell them the files are corrupted. Blame Sarah. Say she deleted them before she left. I watched the text appear on my screen. Blame Sarah even now, even when I wasn't there. David private channel to me. Did you see that? Me yep. He's predictable. David, he just told the auditor that you maliciously destroyed data upon termination. That's a felony accusation. Me? Good thing you have the backup I sent you yesterday, David. Exactly. We're letting him file the formal police report request. Once he signs that affidavit claiming you deleted the files, he's committed perjury and filed a false report. We're not just firing him, Sarah. We're burying him. It was surgical. David wasn't interrupting Greg. He was letting Greg build a fortress of lies brick by brick, not realizing he was walling himself in. Tom came home early that day. He looked like he'd aged 10 years. It's a madhouse, he said, collapsing onto the sofa. Corporate is tearing the place apart. They're saying there are irregularities. That sounds serious, I said, flipping a page in my magazine. Greg says it's a witch hunt. He says you probably tipped them off to cover your incompetence. Tom looked at me suspiciously. Did you call someone? I've been here all day, Tom, watching baking shows. Remember? He rubbed his face. Greg says if they ask me, I have to stick to the story that you were unstable, that the files went missing when you left. And are you going to do that? I asked. Are you going to lie to the auditors? It's not lying exactly, Tom rationalized, his voice shaking. It's presenting a unified front. If Greg goes down, the whole department goes down. I have to protect the team. The team, I scoffed. You mean your bonus? Don't be like that. This is survival. Survival. I repeated. Okay, Tom. Do what you have to do. I looked at him with genuine pity. He was a rat scurrying around a sinking ship, convinced that if he just chewed enough holes in the hull to let the water out, he'd float. David texted me again. David, the affidavit is signed. Greg just legally accused you of sabotage. And Tom just corroborated it in a witness interview. He said he saw you acting suspiciously with the files. My heart didn't break this time. It hardened into diamond. Let them burn. David, tomorrow 10 a.m. Come to the HQ building downtown. Wear something sharp. I walked to my closet. I pushed aside the shapeless cardigans I usually wore to disappear. I pulled out a blazer I hadn't worn in years. It was red, blood red. The headquarters was a glass tower downtown. The kind of place that smells like money and aggressive air conditioning. I walked in wearing my red blazer and heels that clicked with authority. I wasn't Sarah, the logistics coordinator, anymore. I was the Reaper. Mrs. Rodriguez was in the lobby. She wasn't cleaning. She was wearing a floral Sunday dress and holding a purse. Mrs. Rodriguez, I stopped. Today is my day off, she winked. David says I can watch. He says it is educational. We went up to the 40th floor. David met us. He looked impeccable. Not a hair out of place. Ladies, he nodded. They are in conference room B. We will be in the observation suite next door. One-way mirror, audio feed. It felt like an interrogation room in a cop show. We sat in the darkened room looking through the glass. Inside, Greg sat at the head of the table, but he looked small. His tie was loosened, his face slick with sweat. Tom sat next to him, tapping his foot nervously. There was an HR rep from corporate, a woman with eyes like flint, and 2 lawyers. This is harassment, Greg was saying, his voice blustering but thin. I am a director. You can't just raid my office because a disgruntled ex-employee made up stories. We aren't here because of stories, Greg, the corporate HR rep said. We are here because of data. The data is corrupt. Greg slammed his hand on the table, his signature move. She deleted the files. Tom saw her. Tom jumped. Oh yes. I saw her. She was very aggressive with the keyboard, and she was muttering about revenge. I watched my husband lie through his teeth. Mrs. Rodriguez made a noise in her throat, a disgusted TSK. That boy has no spine, she whispered. Like a jellyfish. We recovered the logs. One of the lawyers said calmly. The deletion occurred at 11:45 a.m. on Tuesday. Sarah had already left the building at 10:15 a.m. Her access was revoked at 10:20 a.m. She must have remote accessed it. Greg paled. The deletion command came from an iPad. Specifically your iPad, Greg. Silence. Greg's mouth opened and closed like a fish on a dock. And regarding the Hamburg shipment, the lawyer flipped a page. We found the original emails, the ones in the CYA folder. CYA folder? Greg whispered. Cover your assets, David murmured next to me. He pressed a button on the console. Let's join them, shall we? David stood up. Ready, Sarah? I stood up. I smoothed my blazer. Ready, Dad. We walked out of the observation room and opened the door to the conference room. The look on their faces. God, if I could bottle it, I'd sell it as an anti-aging serum. Greg looked like he'd seen a ghost. Tom looked like he wanted to vomit. Sarah. Greg stammered. What? What is she doing here? Security. She's not here as an employee, Greg, David said, walking to the head of the table. Greg instinctively shrank back. She's here as a consultant and my primary witness. David turned to the room. Please sit down. We have a lot to get through. Specifically, the part where you tried to frame my mother's friend for your own fraud. Your mother? Greg looked confused. David pointed to the glass wall. Mrs. Rodriguez waved from the other room. A little cheerful wave. The cleaner, David said, his voice dropping to absolute zero. You called her a robotic vacuum last week. She's my mother. Greg stopped breathing. Tom put his head in his hands. Shall we begin? David asked. The next 20 minutes were a bloodbath. David didn't shout. He didn't slam doors. He just projected slides. Slide 1. The altered time cards. Grand larceny and wage theft, the lawyer noted. Federal crimes. Slide 2. The entertainment expenses. Embezzlement, the HR rep added. Slide 3. The affidavit. Perjury and filing a false police report. Greg was weeping. Actually weeping snot and tears. The bluster was gone. He was just a pathetic middle-aged man in a sweat-stained shirt realizing his life was over. I can fix it, Greg blubbered. I can pay it back. Please, my wife. She'll leave me. My kids. David looked at him with no pity. You should have thought about families when you told Sarah to go cry to her dead father. Greg flinched as if he'd been slapped. You are terminated effective immediately, David said. Security will escort you out. We are handing this file to the district attorney. I suggest you get a lawyer, a good one. 2 security guards, big guys who looked like they ate dumbbells for breakfast, stepped forward. They hoisted Greg up by his armpits. He dragged his feet, sobbing. Then there was only Tom. The room was quiet. Tom stared at the table. And you? David turned to him. I was just following orders, Tom whispered. The classic defense. You corroborated a false report, David said. You lied to auditors. You conspired to frame your own wife. I was scared, Tom pleaded, looking at me. Sarah, tell him. Greg is a monster. He made me do it. I stepped forward. I looked down at my husband. He looked so small. He didn't make you do anything, Tom, I said. You chose. You chose him over me every single time. We can't fire you, David said, looking at the HR rep. Unfortunately, union rules require a warning process for your level of involvement since you didn't technically sign the deletion order. Tom let out a breath of relief. Thank you. Thank you, David. I promise I'll. However, David interrupted, we are restructuring. The branch is being dissolved. Its clients are being absorbed by the regional remote team. Your position as senior manager is redundant. So I am fired? No, we have an opening in the warehouse. Night shift inventory controlled. It pays significantly less and you will have no direct reports. Inventory. Tom choked. I'm a manager. Not anymore. Take it or leave it. Tom looked at me. Sarah, we can't live on that salary. You can't, I corrected him. I'll be fine. What? David handed me a folder. A blue one this time. Sarah has accepted a position as the new Director of Process Integrity, David announced. She will be overseeing compliance for the entire region. She reports directly to me. She will work remotely. Tom's jaw dropped. She's my boss. No, I said. I'm not your boss, Tom, because I don't supervise entry-level inventory staff. That would be a conflict of interest. I turned to David. I think we're done here. I think we are, David smiled. I walked out. Didn't look back at Tom. I heard him calling my name, but it sounded like it was coming from underwater. That night I was packing boxes. Not my desk, my house. My phone rang. A known number. I answered. Sarah, it was Greg. He sounded drunk. Sarah, please. You have to talk to them. You have the ear of the VP. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. Please, I'm begging you. Begging? I asked, putting a framed photo of my dog into a box. Mrs. Rodriguez said you would be. Who gives a damn about the cleaner? Greg screamed, the old rage leaking through. My life is over. You did this. You ruined me. You ruined yourself, Greg. I just turned on the lights. I'll sue you. I'll tell everyone you're a. Go ahead, I said calmly. But before you do, maybe you should go cry to your daddy. I hung up, blocked the number. It felt better than anything. The front door opened. Tom walked in. He looked like a ghost. He saw the boxes. Leaving? He asked. His voice was hollow. I'm staying at my sister's, I said. The divorce lawyer will contact you on Monday. Sarah, please. We can fix this. I'll take the night shift. We can make it work. I'm sorry. I was weak. You were weak, I agreed, zipping up my suitcase. But that's not why I'm leaving. I'm leaving because when he fired me, you looked at your shoes. And today when I walked into that room, you looked at your bonus. I love you, he sobbed. No, Tom. You love safety. And I'm not safe anymore. I'm the woman who got your boss fired. I walked out to my car. My car, the sedan, not the least one that was about to be repossessed. I drove to the office one last time to drop off my badge. It was late. The lights were dim. Mrs. Rodriguez was there buffing the floors in the lobby. The rhythmic whir of the machine was the only sound. She stopped when she saw me. She turned off the machine. He called me, I said. Mrs. Rodriguez smiled. It was a beautiful, terrifying smile. They always do, my child. When the power goes, the man goes. Thank you, I said. For everything. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a cinnamon candy. She pressed it into my hand. You are the boss now, she said. Be a good one. Don't make me call David on you. We both laughed. It echoed in the empty lobby where Greg used to stomp around like a king. His nameplate was already gone from the directory. I walked out into the cool night air. I unwrapped the candy and popped it in my mouth. It tasted like sugar and victory. I'm 38 years old. I'm divorced. I live in a condo with my dog. And every morning I log into my computer, check the compliance reports, and make sure that nobody anywhere in this company ever has to cry to their parents again. Big thanks to you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.